We're living in this world that's just overflowing with information, with opinions, with all these competing stories. It can feel impossible. How do we even begin to figure out what's really going on? Well, today, we're going to dive into a pretty powerful mental model that can help us navigate all that complexity.
This quote, man, it just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? I think a lot of us can probably relate to this feeling. The sense that to understand something, you've got to pick a side. But what if there's a better way?
For most of us, this is our default setting. It's kind of where we start. We're almost conditioned to see the world as a series of opposites, good versus evil, right versus wrong, us versus them. And let's be honest, there's a certain comfort in that, isn't there? It makes things simple. When you pick your team and you learn the talking points, you feel like you've got a real handle on the issue. The goal becomes defending your turf, not necessarily understanding the whole landscape. But then, sometimes you have this aha moment, a new way of seeing things that just completely changes the game. That's what the parallel mirror insight is all about. And it's such a fantastic metaphor for a more sophisticated way of thinking. Okay, just picture this for a second because this is so cool. Each one of those reflections you see is a valid image, a real reflection, right? But none of them is the single complete picture. They all exist at the same time, side by side, stretching into infinity. That's kind of how different perspectives on a complex issue can exist, as parallel truths that don't have to cancel each other out. And right here, this is where the whole goal shifts. You're no longer a debater trying to win an argument. You become more like an explorer, trying to map out the entire terrain. It's about being more curious than you are certain. So, if this approach is so much better, you might be wondering, why don't we all just think this way naturally? Well, it turns out our own brains have a few little tricks up their sleeves that make it pretty challenging. This is the crucial question, really, because it's not about being smart or dumb or having enough willpower. It's about understanding the way our minds are actually wired. They're built for speed and efficiency, not necessarily for absolute truth. So our brains use these little shortcuts, you can call them heuristics, to make thousands of decisions every day. And look, confirmation bias feels good. It reinforces that we're right. And anchoring bias saves a ton of mental energy. We just stick with that first impression. But those exact same shortcuts are what can trap us in an echo chamber, making us actively push away any new perspective. But here's the payoff. This is the good part. When we learn to override those mental shortcuts, and we consciously decide to use this parallel perspectives mindset, the results are absolutely transformative. It changes the entire nature of how we interact with each other. I mean, just look at the shift here. You go from a battle to a collaboration. Instead of just poking holes and defending your territory, which almost always end in conflict, you're actually listening. You're trying to appreciate someone's experience to build a shared understanding. This isn't just some intellectual exercise. It fundamentally changes how we relate to other people. And you see this everywhere. In politics, it means you stop seeing your opponents as evil caricatures and start seeing them as people with different values. At work, it means seeing a colleague's different approach as a potential asset, not a threat to your way of doing things. And in our personal relationships, it's literally the foundation for true empathy. So that brings us to the final and maybe the most important piece of this whole puzzle. Embracing this way of thinking isn't just a technique you learn, it's a form of intellectual courage. So how do we actually do this? The source gives us 3 really clear habits to work on. First, go out of your way to find news and opinions that challenge you. Step outside the bubble. Second, when you're talking to someone, make it your only goal to truly get where they're coming from. Listen to understand, not just to reply. And third, become a critical thinker. Always be asking who benefits from this narrative, what assumptions are being made here, and what might be getting left out. I absolutely love this quote. We're so often told to find this simple, clean answer. But the real world is messy, it's contradictory, it's complex. And if you run away from that complexity, you're also running away from a deeper, more authentic understanding of how things really are. And that's where we're going to leave it. This is a challenge for you. Think about one belief you hold really, really strongly, something that feels totally black and white. Now,